Thanks for staying with us. We are your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Well, this afternoon, members of the National Executive Committee of the largest opposition party, the NPP, are locked in a high-stakes emergency meeting. While details remain unclear and it remains under wraps, tension is mounting over what could be a defining moment for the party. Just 5 days to the party's major national delegates conference here in Accra. Let's cross over live now to the NPP headquarters here in Accra. My colleague Kenneth Jesse is standing by with the very latest. Ken, has the meeting started yet? Our lines to you. I just wanted to find out if the meeting has even started or even ended yet, and what are the key concerns you're picking that some of the key members of NEC
Party is currently ongoing. I've cited a number of minority MPs in Parliament. I've seen Kufuor Nkrumah, I've seen Stephen Amwa, and a number of them, enter into the room. It's a closed door meeting, but we're getting indication from our sources that people are calling for postponement of the date for the delegates conference. We do not have confirmation yet, but that's what our sources are telling us. And so it's part of the agenda, possibly. The discussions that they are going to have in the room will center largely on the upcoming delegates conference that they are having on the 19th of July. I've engaged a few of the MPs. I've spoken to Kufuor Nkrumah, who has condemned the violence that characterized the Ablekuma North election rerun, which took place over the weekend. He says he's expecting government to expedite the investigation, as has been mentioned by the Interior Minister Muntaka Mubarak today, that they are conducting investigation. He says that if nothing is done about it, it will pose a great danger to our democracy, especially with the Akwatia by-election also coming up. So as we speak now, leadership of the New Patriotic Party are currently engaged in a closed-door meeting. A National Executive Committee of the party are engaged in a closed-door meeting discussing matters of interest for the New Patriotic Party. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have some leading members of Parliament of the party also part of the meeting. We do not know yet what they're discussing, but our sources are telling us that key on the agenda is the upcoming delegates conference that is coming up on the 19th of July. We're also hearing that others are also pushing for postponement of the January presidential primaries, the January 2026 presidential primaries that is going to happen. We're also hearing that that is also going to be considered or discussed at this particular meeting. But as of now, no official statement as to the discussion of what is going to happen has come out yet. So we await the leadership of the party and the leadership of the party in Parliament to conclude with the meeting and officially state their position on what really was discussed at the meeting. So really, that's what's happening here at Alisa Hotel. We will be bringing our viewers up to speed with whatever the outcome is after the meeting has concluded.
Thank you, Kenneth Jesse, for providing us that update. He's on the ground. If you just tuned in, the National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party, they're locked up in a crunch meeting as they tend to deliberate on some of the key issues that have come up and concerns being raised by key party members. Well, 86-year-old former President John Kufuor has voiced deep frustration over what he describes as exclusion from key affairs of the New Patriotic Party, insisting that his age should not be used as a reason to sideline him. In a straightforward reflection, the statesman lamented the growing tendency to push aside senior figures like himself, despite their sacrifices and enduring contribution to the party's legacy. He recounted his decades-long political journey, beginning as a 30-year-old member of parliament in 1968 and later serving as deputy minister under the Prime Minister K.A. Busia. Well, his political career, he tells us, was not without a cost. Let's listen to him. We'll be back to do some analysis here on The Pulse.
Masa to the point say I go cry for aduane no cross say many di benya no that stage in card list yam mamentibi ma te ba ko fa simu ye nneema bi na say ni agodro no na menya party ni bi tin ka me to di mi fam so Ghana political party political history ya can say UGCC but if 47 ba 69 Buzia time nearly power for Ghana 2 years 3 months Buzia time me 69 maybe 30 years and be a member of parliament, be a founding member of Progress Party. 2 years 3 months Buzia I am deputy foreign minister. I jump on 2 years them sick. The team and number Asha Fort prison with them 1 year 3 months. Sabin that day I was moved behind another detention. But I know I did build a year. From 72 January, I jump on 2 years side, the tradition. There are more power beyond that till 2001. Me am a creating departing by power. 2 terms. Ghana, didn't see. And then, the baby say, a young woman, a prepare woman, na bibi se be kwa na nyame ada o ma me cho na ya ba no me kura menti ase
That's an emotional Kufuor there, just stating some of the key grievances he has about the New Patriotic Party. Well, his comments have since triggered a lot of reactions, especially from the political class. Let's listen to political scientist Dr. Machi Boateng wading into this on JN Today.
I like to believe that it is not necessarily a conscious decision by the party to sideline President Kufuor. I think it's a constitutional issue. The decision-making structures, I like to believe, I've not examined the party's constitution, but I believe that the decision-making structures, have excluded the office of, if you like, people like President Kufuor who held, or who led the party into government. I like to believe that such other people, people who have held other offices, either in the constituency leaders who have been members of parliament before, I like to believe that all those people are not necessarily captured by the structures that make authoritative decisions in the party. So I think it is a call for a constitutional review to bring on board all these people, given that, like he's suggesting to us, he has years of experience behind him, and obviously he's still interested in the affairs of the party, at least the fortunes of the party. So that is the way I look at it. Well, it means that the party is not appropriating what we call institutional memory. And so decisions taken today are not informed by, this institutional memory and, the youthful aspects of it, where the party is coming from, whether some such issues have occurred before, the effects of factionalism and stuff like that. So the party is simply not appropriating this knowledge that is within itself. Party unity in such cases will have to be looked at from, some position of understanding, because political parties are not necessarily unitary actors. Political parties. You have factions making up political parties. And that is why the party structure will have to acknowledge this, the existence of factions in the party, pockets of interest, everybody trying to make sure that, the party moves in the direction that will be beneficial to them. So the party will have to get this understanding and structure itself to really carry all these, positions on board in major decisions. So I think, once again, it's a constitutional issue. You can't do away with factionalism in political parties. It's a normal element. But then, depending on how you manage it, depending on how you structure your decision-making institutions to enable as many people as possible, you spread it, and for that matter, various interests, various factions in the party getting the opportunity to participate in the decision-making. When you do that, the outcome is a compromise. Everybody sees himself as in the eventual decision that is taken. Once again, I would like to know exactly how the party structures, are and how they have been functioning. Whether there's a gap between the formal and informal structures of the party. Do you have the party's institutions suggesting that if you move in direction A, but somehow informally, and you can't do away with informal institutional structures in any organization? So we would also like to see whether that is indeed the case. In the absence of that, you want to blame the party's formal structures as not delivering the desired outcome.
Well, let's explore this further and bring in the founding member of the NPP, Dr. Nyaho Nyaho Tamakloe. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. He joins us live via Zoom. You have maintained that the NPP lacks leadership. We're hearing from a stalwart of a party criticize how he has been sidelined by key members of the party. You still maintain that point that is indeed a leadership problem?
Definitely has a leadership problem. And the most disturbing thing is that the party has disregarded completely elders and founders of the party. And they have rather focused on professionalizing the party for monetary gains. That is what is going on. A party without a national agenda to develop the country, definitely this is the way it will be. Now, a party without also, a party with leaders who don't recognize their history. The party has a history. We have a nice history. It's not being recognized now. So it's been destroyed totally during the era of Kufuor. It's as simple as that. Now, quite recently, we have noticed also that people have been scrambling for presidential seat instead of strengthening the party. And these are all things that weaken the party. Now, how can a party national executive take a decision on an important issue like an election, which took place, I think, a day ago or a day or two ago, and then it will be disregarded? The instructions will be disregarded by the constituency. It's impossible. So these are some of the issues facing the party. And if these are not corrected, definitely we shall land in a very serious situation. If we are not careful, the party will be dismembered. That's my fear.
And I'm sure you feel vindicated because for a while now you've been hammering on some of these issues in the NPP and the need to fix them. But it appears the cracks continue to dip in.
Oh yeah, I agree with you entirely. Now, I have not been happy with the present national executive we have. They are not simply competent. You see, politics is quite a different thing. I am a physician by profession, but I have interest in politics. And in politics, if your first interest is to amass wealth, you will destroy yourself and destroy the party. We've seen this through the years. Right down from the time of Kwame Nkrumah, we've seen it. I was a kid, but I remember. You follow me? And these are some of the reasons I keep on even, bringing to the attention of the political class in this country. As the way they are going, they are walking the country into the hands of the military. I will never stop saying it because I have experienced it before, where politics has become a sort of, money-making machine. That is not what politics is meant for. Politics is for the development of the ordinary people we see around. And political parties are not doing that. I was even strongly disturbed when I read today in the press, whether it's true or not, that NDC members are behind this galamsey. If it is true, then I ask John Mahama to sit down properly. He must expose them for the whole nation to know. Because definitely what is going on about the galamsey, and I've talked about it several times, you can see clearly that there are kingpins behind it. Otherwise, there will never be the sort of situation we found ourselves in now. It appears nobody cares.
And we're delving into illegal mining briefly, just before we turn our attention into that. I just wanted to get your thoughts. You say that the current crop of leadership in the NPP are only interested in amassing wealth for themselves. How do you propose they fix the cracks within the party?
Look, when you have a political party, we have strategists. We have all gone through that before. There were people who were senior to us. We listened to them. We respected them. I mean, I can't name the people. You follow me? There are many respected people in society. We followed them. And when it was our time, we took over. But unfortunately, what we have now in the party leadership is just looking for money and property. Nothing again. We say it then. Now, if people are afraid to say it, I will say it. Because that is what it is. And that is what has brought the party to its knees now.
But fundamentally speaking...
Who at all can deny the fact that people who have never worked straight from university into politics are owing mansions? Can that be possible anywhere? But it's possible here. Let them come and challenge me, and I'll point out to them the properties they have. How do they acquire it?
But fundamentally, you agree that in the NPP, there's a foundational problem.
I didn't get you.
Fundamentally, would you agree that in the NPP, there's a foundational problem?
Oh, certainly there is. The problems are legion. The problems are legion. The problem of leadership, fighting. At the moment we have them more than 6. You don't run a political party that way. You have to strengthen the party, especially when not quite long ago you lost an election. You make sure you strengthen the party first, and you strengthen the party from the grassroots up. That is how political parties are built, not from the top to bottom. It will never work. So until they do that, and to me, the present national executive must resign and block. And then they find an IMC to organize the party from the start, and then we build the party up again. And I can assure you, that will work.
But that would be a daunting task. But let's just look at even what played out with Ablikmo North. We had the party take a stance. Few days later, a candidate decides to run for the election. And that fundamentally, some politicians and even political analysts say affected the fortunes of the party. How do we fix that?
In fact, I've just spoken about that. It is really strange. This will never happen under the leadership of the BJ Darocha. Look, we have elders in the party with experience. People like Kwame Tieni, they are there. Kufuor is there. And a lot of them, I mean, Corona Bonzo, Keji Bonzo is there. But the people at the helm of affairs now are not people who are interested really in the party. Because how can a national executive take a decision, broadcast it all over, and yet a candidate, a constituency candidate who wants to get into parliament disregards that. It is impossible. Such a person should be immediately dismissed from the party. But you ask yourself, can that be done? No. It cannot be done because the leadership itself is not fit to be there.
So they must go from where you sit.
Is it there are what?
So they must go. The leadership, the current crop of leadership in the NPP must go.
The moment we lost the election and they started that thank you tour, I came out and said they rather have to go and apologize to do at this stage is for the leadership, I'm talking about the executive leadership, to resign and block. They should leave the scene. And then the party will put in place an IMC, and the IMC will see to the reconstruction of the party, as we have done before, and that will we build that from the grassroots to the, let's say, from the ward level to the constituency level, to the district, to the region, and to national level, before we think about picking leaders of the party again. Without that, we are just deceiving ourselves.
The party we know is currently locked in a crunch meeting, the National Executive Council rather, of the party, and we're picking information that this meeting ahead of the delegates conference is to help address some of the key concerns that have been raised, especially from the likes of former President Kufuor. And one of the key concerns my colleague tells me they are raising is the party's decision to organize the flag bearership race even before you select your regional executives. And that is problematic for some people. From where you sit, is that the right decision to have taken?
Look, if they did try to organize a presidential aspirant before reconstructing the party, they will have the shock of their lives. The party will totally collapse. Mark my words. Because majority of the party members are against that. That is not the right way to go about politics. You, in anything you do in life, you start from the beginning. We have fallen flat, and we have to start from the beginning. And I believe strongly, if they listen carefully to the words of J. Kufuor last time, that's exactly what Kufuor was trying to tell them. And I have told them that earlier. The records are there. If they like, they should try it and see what will happen.
And that is what they have decided to do. But then from where you sit, what key proposals do you feel that they could adopt that could help them better implement this? Because for you, you're prophesying doom for the entire process.
No, the point is, I've talked, I said the basic, look, those are the helm of the affairs of the party now, are not people who are interested in the party and politics, real politics. Politics is to serve the people, not to come and feed your pockets and build mansions. Those are the head of the party now, who have been there for just a couple of years, have amassed mansions and filled their pockets full with money. These people cannot bring the party up at the level that it is at the moment. And the reason why they are trying to pick a leader now is for them to be able to sustain their position. That's all. Nothing else. If there's anybody, if the leadership will fail to tell them or they are afraid to tell them, I'm telling them. The idea is just a simple thing. Let's pick a leader, and the leader will be our candidate. They are not thinking about the leader being candidate of the entire party and the population. If they want a leader they can control and then be able to stay in their position as they are now. And that is very, very dangerous. Let them try it and they will see the result.
And what would be the fundamental ripple effect if key individuals like the likes of former President Kufuor decides to pull out because they feel sidelined entirely? We've already seen a lot of individuals leave the party, the likes of Alan Tremanting, and the impact that had in the 2024 general elections. What will be the implications moving forward?
Now, with the question of ex-President Kufuor, I have a strong feeling also that he should have started talking about the way the party was going long ago, when Akwatia was there. Because the party started disintegrating when Akwatia was in the seat. A political party, as I said, and I will continue saying it, the interest of the leadership is to serve the people, not to steal from them. And these are some of the points Kufuor should have started talking about long ago. And that should have waken all of us up. But they were left all by themselves. No one knows exactly who leads the party. And the party was deceiving itself and its followers. And that is what landed us in the most disgraceful defeat that has been experienced by a political party in this country. And as I said, if we really want to build a party, it must start from the grassroots, because the grassroots are fed up with us and they are so they are hurt because they know, and they are saying clearly, as Kufuor said, there are no more, excuse my language, there are no more fools. They know exactly what politics is all about. Now they see politicians as people who come in to make money. Now you take a look at what happens now. How when leaderships, when leaders are picked, even at constituency level, when a person is made a minister, how people rush around him looking for money. Because they know you are coming there to steal money. The money that they get is not their money. They steal the state money. And this is not done in any civilized country. They steal the money. Otherwise, Oforiatta will not run away from this country. I'm glad that the FBI has given permission that he can be brought back. Let them bring them back, all of them. And even the trial, John Mahama is delaying with the trial of these people. It's delaying. We are in the 7th month now. Not even one person has been sent to court for trial. Apart from, what do you call, Professor, what is his name? Who is supposed to be at trial on the 23rd of this month. And we know there have been numerous malfeasances. Why can't they be sent to court? What is the Attorney General doing? That's why I say the political class in this country, they must be very careful. They must be very careful. The era in which they were years ago is not the same era we are today. Otherwise, they'll have the shock of their lives. I've been saying it and I will continue saying it.
Let's zoom into the violence that marred the Ablikma North rerun and predictions that it might reoccur when it comes to the next by-election that the country is planning for, if we do not deal with some of the key issues with security during our elections. From where you sit, electoral violence, how best do we deal with this as a country?
Look, electoral violence tells you only one thing, that democracy, as it should be practiced, is not being practiced that way. That's the first thing. So if democracy really has to establish itself in this country, there will be no electoral violence. And people are paid money to cause confusion. Now, when Kufuor set up from the beginning, I call them, paramilitary organizations or whatever they were, I cautioned the party. The records are there. I even gave examples of other countries that have gone through similar things in the past. I remember I measured Adolf Hitler and Mussolini, Benito Mussolini in Italy. They formed these groups to just unleash unnecessary hardships, even killing of people who oppose their views. So we have left this. It has grown. How on earth should anybody lose his life during an election? For what reason? It has happened in this country. 9 people died in 2020. What happened yesterday at that, constituency is equally bad. Those who organize it, if they can be identified, they have to be dealt with. They must be dealt with. That's why I keep on saying that we are drifting completely from the word democracy or the practice of democracy. And when we continue doing or going that way, then what will happen is that there will be total breakdown of law and order in the country. And that will invite the military into government again. I'm saying that because I've seen it happen several times. Leaders were warned and they never cared. And we walk into it just like that. If we have been able to come out of one after 19 years and we want to go back, then it's left to the political class. They have to let their people know that politics is not a question of amassing wealth. Politics is service to the people. And if you fail to serve the people, then you are not doing politics. That's all that I will say now.
We've heard from security analysts propose that moving forward, internal party security should not be left to the hands of individuals. Rather, political parties should rely solely on state security. But we heard from the aide to Dr. Bawumia over the weekend on Newsfile raise the concerns that when the chaos erupted in Ablekuma North during the rerun, the police were simply helpless. From where you sit, should the political parties be allowed to protect themselves at least?
The political parties, if they are allowed to protect themselves, then we go into the days of Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, where you have the black shirts and the brown shirts, as they used to be called. They suppress people and, in fact, kill people for reasons not known. Now, the problem with our security here, particularly the police, is that police leadership in this country has never acted independently. If they did, most of them would have resigned on principle. Now, if the police has a duty to do, they should not look over their shoulders. They should do it. The police must do their work. If there is route, that's why they have the routing unit in the police service. We see it always on the television of other countries. Depending on the level of routes in the country, the police will come out and meet the routers. You follow me? But here, yesterday I saw with my naked eye, policeman just walking away. In fact, he's trying to save himself from what happened. That is a breakdown of law and order. And I don't know what the IGP was doing himself at that time. I mean, when you realize that those you have there are not properly armed or prepared to face such a violent crowd, you go to the second phase of arming your people or letting them come there with truncheons and face the crowd. But nothing of that nature happened. But security being left in the hands of political parties to defend themselves, that is totally wrong. That cannot happen. And if that happens and the political party tries to do that, then we are heading towards a very serious problem.
Thank you so much for your time here on the Pulse. Dr. Nyaho Nyaho Tamakloe joined us just to give his thoughts on some of the key issues that have come up within the New Patriotic Party. We know that currently the NEC is locked up in a crunch meeting as they put together some of the key concerns and also try to address them ahead of that delegates conference coming up in a couple of days. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. He has already highlighted some of the key concerns that indeed, according to him, the NPP is facing a leadership problem and all the current leadership of the NPP must go. That's his thoughts. Well, in the wake of the violent scenes that marred the Ablekuma North rerun, former AU representatives on Silence the Guns, Dr. Eben Chambers, is calling on state institutions, particularly the Interior Ministry, to urgently boost security measures ahead of the high-stakes Akwatia by-election. Now, with tensions running high and fears of political vigilantism resurfacing, Dr. Chambers warns that Ghana's democratic credibility is once again on the line, urging strong security presence to protect voters and safeguard the integrity of the process. He spoke earlier on Newsdesk.
Security agencies, especially the police, I know in the past they engage in that also. They call the youth, they sit down with them. I think the IG, should get his regional commander and others to organize meetings already in Akwatia ahead of the meetings. The Minister of Interior is somebody that I know, and I know is completely opposed to this type of violence. I watched his vetting, and I recall him saying there that he completely condemns any acts of violence in our elections. And he even gave his own example in his constituency in Kumasi, where, how he and the then vice presidential candidate made efforts to calm down their youth. And consequently, you didn't hear of any violence there. And so I think he can step up here and, work to support the security agencies to engage the youth ahead of the by-election so that Akwatia can turn out as, what was it? Was it we had a by-election in the central region, which went very well without incident prior to the general election. So it's doable. Asin North to Asin Central, one of the Asin constituencies, I remember, so it can be done. And so let's be proactive. Let's be in conflict and violence prevention mode.
Well, Dr. Eben Chambers is also urging the leadership of the NPP and the NEC to engage in sincere dialogue aimed at curbing the growing menace of political vigilantism. He believes the two main parties must take joint responsibility in de-escalating tensions ahead of the Akwatia by-election.
Yes, the youth in Akwatia should be engaged immediately prior to that election. I mean, the youth wing of NDC, youth wing of NPP should be brought together, and they should be talked to. There should be dialogue. There should be efforts between now and then, not just campaigning. They should engage in cleanup campaigns, joint cleanup campaigns. Those things help to build confidences and camaraderie and to let them know that, look, Akwatia is coming and it will not be worth the blood of any citizen of Akwatia just because there's going to be a by-election. And as it's unfortunate the MP passed, so, I mean, tribute should be paid to this young member of parliament. Well, I don't know, but I hear a young up-and-coming politician. So, I mean, the best way to pay tribute to someone like that is to ensure that we have peaceful election. After all, in the general elections, nobody had anything from Akwatia. So why should it be now that there's going to be a by-election that people should be hurt or killed or maimed? It's uncalled for. And what I'm saying is that let's get all our civil society, but also our constitutional organs, which we have set up specifically for that purpose, National Peace Council through its regional peace council, its district peace councils should get to work, but they need to be enabled to do that. Let the parties, at the senior level, youth leaders of both two parties, let us see them come out in an act of solidarity together.
Well, let's stay on elections. CODEO has condemned acts of violence, vote buying, and intimidation that marred the rerun of parliamentary elections in the Ablikma North constituency, calling for immediate investigations and accountability. Now, although CODEO did not deploy observers to any of the 19 polling stations during the July 11, 2025 election, it monitored the process through media reports and accounts from stakeholders. Well, we've broken down the coalition's press statement into 7 main points on Ablikma North constituency, and that is coming up on your screens. One of the key concerns they raised during in their statement is that, one, they're condemning the incident. So it starts by saying the coalition condemns the incidents of violence and intimidation against poll workers, voters, journalists, and 2 female politicians. The coalition urges the police to move with alacrity to apprehend and prosecute all persons involved in the acts of violence. Perpetrators must face the full force of the law to deter others from engaging in such undemocratic practices during election and clamp down on impunity. The coalition also notes and condemns the use of incendiary and provocative language by leading members of the NDC and the NPP in the aftermath of violent incidents. They go on to state that security lapses observed during this election rerun, in spite of heavy deployment of security personnel, raises very serious questions about the state of the Ghana Police Service. The most worrying observation was the acts of police officers guarding the gate of St. Peter's Society polling station in Odoko, who basically stepped aside as thugs forced their way into the polling station to assault the agents and 2 politicians. This posture of the police was observed during the 2024 election and transition. CODEO calls on President John Dramani Mahama and the Police Council under Article 202, Section 2 of the Constitution to exercise its powers of control and direction of the Inspector General of Police to institute an inquiry into the recent action of police officers in the handling of police duties involving political actors. Well, the NPP has criticized President John Dramani Mahama for his seeming silence following the violent attack on the former Fisheries and Aquaculture Minister Mavis Hawakumsin during the Ablikma North election rerun. Well, on Newsfile on Saturday, Dr. Bawumia's spokesperson, Miracles Abuaji, said the NPP will be compelled to find ways to protect themselves.
There had been 4 bloodsheds. In fact, Talensi, there was an instruction by the National Security to stop every vehicle and search. Everybody on this call recollect. At some point, they found guns and ammunition in the vehicle of the national chairman then. To date, nothing happened. The women organizer of the National Democratic Congress in Etiwa drove through a group of NPP supporters. Some are maimed. and incapacitated till today. Nothing happened. Akwatia, Honorable Damboche's vehicle was shot into. His driver was hit. He was rushed to the hospital fighting for his life. Baba Jamal at that time, vehicles ran over people in Akwatia. Nothing was done about it. You see, it is as a result of some of these things that for whatever reason, some of the political parties at the time, after Etiwa, decided to begin to take the protection of their own people into their hands.
Jamboedu made this point.
We cannot run away from that fact. We can't. We can't pretend that is it. We cannot solve the problems if we don't go into these things. So if you recollect, something happened in Etiwa. Etiwa was the first time in the history of the NPP that we stood up for ourselves. And you recollect the famous Yachiro Mubibi Kitwebi. And then since Etiwa, the NPP began to protect ourselves. Let me tell you, as of 2019, that the anti-vigilantism law was passed. No political party had the kind of strength that the NPP had when it comes to what they did in Ablekuma North. No political party. We had the strength. We could do 3 times what they did in Ablekuma North as of 2019. But the president and the party then realized that that wasn't the way to go. Yes, we suffered it in 4 elections before we decided to own our own lives and our own protections. But they felt that it was time for us to put a stop to it.
The outbreak of violence during the Ablekuma North parliamentary rerun, the deputy presidential spokesperson, Shamima Muslim, condemned the political acts of vigilantism, calling on political parties to rethink their methods of mobilization, especially where they put young people's lives at risk. Shamima Muslim further urged political parties to disband structures that jeopardize the safety of their supporters.
You can't point out macho groups, vigilante groups again, as we really saw them at the height of which we saw some of them actually besiege a court premise, to take someone who was in court being taken through due process. We've seen a lot of things before. What I'm saying is that to the extent that you can't trust NPP, NDC, or political parties to allow institutions to work in and of themselves, especially around issues of elections, individuals like Dr. Kopong, who are in research institutions, cannot and should not make claims that all of them have been doing this, because they do research, they provide statistics. Statistics give us an inkling and to who must carry a certain disproportionate burden of responsibility or blame, even as we are trying to arrive at a conclusion.
Okay, you've condemned.
Of course.
Okay.
Those actions are condemnable.
Okay.
I'm saying that nobody who sits and watches the visuals would say that this is how a democracy should look like, especially after we've done multiple elections.
Okay.
We are 33 years on. We have sustained this 4th democratic dispensation, 33 good years on. We have largely had free and fair elections, save for all of these instances.
Well, we'll be exploring this further here on The Pulse, and I have with me Professor Kwesi Enin. He's a security analyst, as we look at the implications of the fallout of Ablekuma North rerun, and we'll be having that conversation shortly. I appreciate your time, Prof. Please stay with me, but I want you to shift your attention with me now on this viral video that has gone viral, in which a man claiming to be the chairman of the disbanded NPP vigilante group, Delta Force, in the Ashanti region, has threatened mayhem in the upcoming Akwatia by-election. Watch this.
Both Delta Force, Invisible Force, all the forces say NPP. I didn't see any fire crowd, any emoja. Yanyi Tumima, NPP 2016. Shamohe Obia Organa Biam and Kodi NPP. And Mabuno, Yapon Kodenji Tumi. Yewie, Modi Yesemu, 2 weeks remand. Adaya, Ye Pejuma, Aye. Namasa Koyamra, Edia Tichiri said, Ye Bibia Yanchi, and the catch them on them. They see one, the shop. Voice any momo. I don't know what in Biani of you. Obie no ma sabi nyame boy a ne nan ye fo na ne sizes na ho de 99 ye nyina ba ko pe e ma wo pe eti na de kra e ji tumi e ma ba ko am de fa so no mu no we me sem bo me nya prophet me nyobi aba me sem me ana me data force chairman na Santa Rita ye kasa boys ni tie ye kasa mu piem lo mpie ba ye kasa mu na o mu da se mu ni bodyguard asia bodyguard ni bodyguard ufo be say bodyguard or security ya or ye part of your body because na me for sama one ne nam na se tutu a one de ne hoji se kan ba one de ne hoji abebe am hada kumisi as man how kumisi ankobi ade ne ho beti ama but modem sa left and right didi ya and by for se konko didi ya onko ne atiwa NPP mu watch out na babunu no security for no kwam de fast no mama omo no ensia bibi no mu se next time no offer akra ana osma akra se onko ne kwafu na so ne nema na de ndu baabi na ga se ahamesio no asie na akra ne su se security yesu na for now 5 person e bi sibi.
Well, let me try to translate some of the key things he said. He said that they sacrificed their lives to secure victory for the NPP in 2026. But when they won power, the NPP, according to them, turned their backs on them. And according to him, some of their members were arrested and prosecuted and remanded. And they went on to pass the law to disband them, referring to the NPP when they took over power. And he goes on to say that what happened in Ablekuma North is small, and the NPP hasn't seen anything yet. And he goes on to make more threats as to what they plan to do in the upcoming by-elections. Well, I have with me Professor Kwesi Enin. We're not appearing to see the last of this. We're just hearing from key members from the political class. Let us know that when it comes to internal security, this is something that they would be maintaining. We heard from aide from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia over the weekend on Newsfile, Rakos Akwatia, say that based on what he has seen in Ablekuma North, it's only fair that they internally mobilize to provide security for themselves. What's your thoughts on this, Prof? Prof, you have to unmute for me to hear you clearly. I just wanted to pick your thoughts on some of the key concerns that has been raised right now about political vigilantism and the impact it is having on our electoral process, especially on the back of some of the worrying and chaotic scenes we saw in Ablekuma North. You were with me here on Friday when Ablekuma North by rerun actually was ongoing, some of the chaotic scenes we saw, and you raised concerns about it. Now we're hearing from some key individuals, the political class, saying that, hey, this may never end and they might start protecting themselves even more. What would be the implication for our democracy?
Well, it will undermine our democracy. Some of us have argued consistently first that vigilantism poses a potential existential threat to our democracy and eventually possibly to the state as a whole. When you listen to this young man from the Delta Force, you know, I mean, he's accepted what they did, what they can do, and we've seen from the chaotic scenes what people are willing and prepared to do. But it's not these young men who are the problems. It is the enablers, the recruiters, the financiers, and those who provide political protection for them. Now, if you disaggregate this young man's utterances, there's a sense of being used and cast aside. Such people become, you know, willing or potential people who can be radicalized to strike a blow against those who recruited, exploited, and dumped them. Okay? You know, so as I told you on Friday, from where I sit, until we find out the financiers, the enablers, and haul them before courts and give them 25 years or whatever the maximum sentence can be. This is only the beginning, because vigilantism transforms lives. It gives access to people in power. They get access to jobs, and those who are cast aside become extremely frustrated and are willing to sell their skills to the highest bidder. We are joking when we think that vigilantism is about these young men. Vigilantism is about a political class lacking culture or political culture and willing to use any other means necessary, including violence that results in death, destruction of property, maiming of the same citizens they seek to govern, that they don't care about. Until we identify those people, put them before court and imprison them, we are going to see this. And I listened to my senior old boy from Infant Middle School, His Excellency Dr. Chambers. You know, what Chambers is saying is what ought to be done, and we ought to have done this 30 years ago. Unfortunately, the political class that we have now are not interested in bringing the youth together, because togetherness is strength. Strength provides knowledge sharing that exposes the attempts by political class to manipulate them for their own pecuniary selfish ends. So they will not do that. The guys who perpetrated this violence at Ablekuma are not local boys. The local boys were those on the motorcycles. But the 25 or 30 tough men were not local boys. Okay? And this explains the franchising that is within the vigilante movement. Okay? People are being hired, and it cuts across the multiple groups who are best suited to do a particular job at a particular place and time. And they will come together and get a job done for a specific fee. So we've been promised that those who did this, you know, their ordinary criminal acts, and therefore people will be picked up. It's 72 hours and counting. And I don't know if anybody has been picked up yet. You know, so there's this culture of impunity that insofar as I have a godfather or a godmother, well-placed, well-networked, you know, I'll be hired to do this and I'll still go scot-free. So this is not going to end now, far from it.
And how do you propose we even find these financiers in the first place, especially when we all know that even the financial records of the political parties are not even made public?
Oh, they are very simple ways of it. Just an injection or two, they will sing like parrots. But it's not my responsibility to go in that here. It's very, 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 very simple. The chemicals are available. They will talk plenty.
Many argue that if we do not...
We don't have the interest, nor the political will.
No political will, no interest, you say. Many argue that if we do not deal with this issue of political vigilantism and some of the violent scenes we're seeing in our elections, we're setting the stage for chaos, especially in the upcoming Akwatia by-election. How do you propose that we beef up security for that by-election, looking at some of the key concerns that have come up from fallouts of Ablekuma North?
But we can beef up all the security we want, except we want to give them instructions to shoot to kill. Otherwise, those who should be preventing this are themselves those who are organizing these boys. So, look, we can blame the police and the army and the statutory security forces. But let's be clear that we are then giving them a mandate to shoot to kill. Otherwise, if it is just the routine riot control techniques, they will overrun them, because these people are motivated, they are well paid, they've been psyched up, and they know they have godmothers and godfathers. Okay, so it is not the type of placing or the numbers. If, as His Excellency Chambers was saying, we have a political class with a culture that seeks to pull back from the violent brink that we are, it's about joint activities, collaboration, cooperation, and as he correctly said, in December 2024, Akwatia was not the big deal. It wasn't a big deal. The people in Akwatia are going about their daily business. So why this talk? But we need, in making these analysis and assessments, ask the counterfactual questions. And I normally tell my students that in trying to get to the bottom of some of these things, we need to move away from our normal self and begin to ask difficult counterfactual questions. How would I act were I to be a member of the Delta Force, Invisible Force, Pentagon, and all that? I will not target Akwatia, because the intelligence and security forces will hopefully be there, and my opponents will come heavily prepared. So I'll wait for other instances or other cases where the security would not be prepared and my opponents will neither be prepared. It will be childish analysis and intelligence preparation to think that Akwatia will be the next violent spot. Okay, we shouldn't think that way. We should think that for those who have been brutalized, when is the best next opportunity where they can hit hard and go scot-free? That next best opportunity is not Akwatia, because everyone is focusing there. The final point is that I've always argued that we should build strong institutions, particularly the institutions with the mandate to protect us, so that we don't seek individual protections, because we don't know how to do that. So if we take the case of the woman who was battered and she had pepper spray, or I don't know what kind of spray, and that showed intent from when she left her home that something could happen, or she was prepared herself to do something. Now, because of the lack of appropriate training as to how to use this, in seeking to protect herself, were we to move the video in slow motion, you would see that in protecting herself by spraying, she rather sprayed the police officers who were seeking to form a cordon, a protective cordon. When the spray was used, they all had to, rub their eyes or move away. That created a space for this globally recognized diver to dive and headbutt. Okay, so we need to do things in a different way, building trust in the statutory forces to be able to protect us, and providing them with the tools and the skill sets to be able to do so. But this is just the beginning of a long period in which violence will spill from the political space relating to elections into business, into social locations. And increasingly, we will see the use of guns and other more offensive weapons.
And Prof, even though this is quite serious what we're discussing, your description of the diver put a smile in my face. But stay with me. The government, we know, has also been responding to it. I'll come back to you for your reaction to that. But government says it is committed to ensuring that all individuals involved in the violence that marred the rerun of the parliamentary elections in Ablikman North constituency are brought to justice. Speaking at the maiden edition of government's accountability series, the Minister for Interior, Muntaka Mubarak, said that the President, John Dramani Mahama's led administration, will not shield any wrongdoer.
And then that drifts into the second part. Why up to about 72 hours we've not seen any swift action with regards to the other, unfortunate incident let me say that we condemn this in no uncertain terms. I mean, that's, for me, it's a scar on all of us conscience that as people, having practiced democracy for over 3 decades, we cannot simply just go and have election and it will be violence-free. That is something that all of us, in my view, especially those of us in politics, should be very concerned and very worried about. But there's a difference. The huge difference is that, check and see, almost all of us at the top have condemned this. In the past, you will not get that. The vice president has done that. I mean, the president is out of the country, so currently the vice president is leading us, and she condemned it in no uncertain terms. She instructed. I mean, she called me, I told her, Madam, I've already instructed the IGP, and the IGP is sitting here. He will show you. If you could even come to my phone, you'll see that same day I forwarded all the videos that I had, and I asked IG, what are you doing about it? I said, look, we have to review the cameras. We have to look at it from all the angles. He has sent the, what do you call it, the crime scene guys there. The ICT guys are all working to make sure that we get it. But remember, that officer is somebody that we know, because he has a number, he has a name, we know where he is, we know where we station him. We can easily go after him. But these are guys who commit this sin and they vanish from the system. But we have to, it take time to track them. But assurance is that we are not going to allow this to go unpunished. Unless they flee the country. So long as they are around, they should be rest assured. They will have to, the law will have to take its course. Because we cannot allow this to happen in our country. And you can be rest assured that, and I trust in the professionalism of the IGP and his team, that they are going to do a good job. I want to remind myself and all Ghanaians the provision of the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act 2019, Act 999, that all of us needs to be mindful about the activities of vigilantism. And I can assure you that not my party, not any group will we sit and allow to see the resurgence of vigilantism. I have spoken to the IGP firmly on all the, what do you call it, the happenings of Ablekumanov. The videos have been forwarded to him. We've instructed him to act swiftly, bring the perpetrators to book. That the police officer that did the assault, you saw swift action. What is next? Obviously, the police administration has rules. When an officer, for lack of better word, misbehaves, the first thing is interdiction. Then the person is given an opportunity to defend himself or herself before what they call the police standard bureau, where the professional standard bureau, sorry, where the person appears. So that will be the next thing. Obviously, the officer will appear before the police, what do you call it, professional standard bureau, where the person will be given an opportunity to be heard. And definitely the videos and all of that will play. So,
well, we're hearing from the Interior Minister there, give us assurances that the perpetrators of the acts of violence in Ablekumanov constituency will be brought to book. Prof, let me get your brief reaction to that. This is not the first time we're getting assurances from government that they would actually bring perpetrators to book. This time they say they're reviewing the footages. What's your thoughts? Will it work?
Well, I mean, the impression one gets is that reviewing the footage can and must take more than 72 hours, which I don't agree with. Secondly, is that these people sort of just appeared from nowhere. No. I mean, people in Ablekumanov have been going about their respective duties without these guys coming to beat them up. I mean, there's been funerals, weddings, birthday parties. So why during an election? You know, so it raises a couple of very disturbing questions. And I think we should be looking for these people. But the video footage is clear. You know, I mean, I'm sure some of these guys might be in some database or something. Or if we don't have a database of vigilantes in this country, then, well, I don't see the essence of this law that was passed as far back as, 20, whatever. You know, so there are a lot of, questions that both the press conference and the way we've handled the aftermath raises. But, I'm a very optimistic person, sometimes very naive. So The assurances have been given. Let's give ourselves a couple of weeks, and let's see if some of these guys will be arrested, given the appropriate interrogation, so we will know those who financed them, who recruited them, and who brought them to Accra, and where they were lodged and all that. Because if we use a basic network analysis, that will drive us, or that will take us very far. But this is not the end of it, far from it. And it's going to be considerably violent.
And Prof, I want you to stay with me. Let me just play one more cue from the Interior Minister, because he added that the incident also presents a valuable opportunity for security agencies to better prepare themselves ahead of the upcoming Akwatia by-election. Let's listen to him. I'll be back with you, Prof.
Well, the interesting thing is that I'm sure this is also a wake-up call for our security agencies to know that if maybe probably what happened, maybe you could say that it was not an organized thing, it was a spontaneous thing. Whether it was organized, whether it was spontaneous, this gives our security agencies the opportunity to even plan better towards Akwatia. All I can assure the people of Akwatia is that we will use Ablekumanov as a case study to review our operational, how we operate in Akwatia, to make sure that the citizens are free to cast their vote and express their will without fear or favor. And for all the groups, whether you are in the NDC, whether you are in the NPP, whether you are independent, to a term of imprisonment of not less than 10 years and not more than 15 years. So I want to remind all of us, including myself, that if anybody organizes this is what awaits you. And I believe in the professionalism of the IGP, COP, Christian Teteyano, that he is not going to spare any person. And he can have my full support, and I'm sure I also have the full support of the president that he must let the law grant anybody, whether that person is a Muntaka, or that person is from NPP, or that person is from NDC, he must make sure that the person faces the full rigors of the law. So that we can assure you, we'll do our best and ensure that Akwatia is safer and the election will be more peaceful.
Prof, as we wrap up the conversation, you say that Akwatia should not be where we're looking forward to, because sometimes these people have intelligence, so they may withdraw and strike at a later date. Your final thoughts as we wrap up the conversation on the Interior Minister's proposal?
Ablekuma should not be a test run for Akwatia, because we had the same thing with Ayawaso North. We had the same thing with Tripoli. We've had the same thing with every other case. Law enforcement must be given the space, the protection to deliver security, irrespective of the occasion, across this country, consistently and in a predictable, secure manner. Ablekuma is only reflective of the lack of a political culture that does not believe in violence. So far as people hire these people to do this dirty work, no amount of assurances to law enforcement will get them to deliver, because the people are motivated that they are protected from whoever is backing them and recruiting them. This is a blot, and I like the minister's words. It's a scar on our conscience and on our dignity as a nation. This is disgraceful.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your time here on The Pulse. I appreciate your time. And you're still watching The Pulse. The Interior Minister has announced that government will, in the next 6 months, establish an independent police complaint commission to address concerns over police misconduct. And you can read more of that on myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Zava. You could please stay with us. We'll be back after this quick turn. Well, let's do other stories. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. The Ghana Health Service is set to align its operations with the government's new inaugurated 24-hour policy. Now, while some hospitals already operate around the clock, the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba, emphasized that CHIPS compounds and polyclinics will now also provide 24-hour services. It stated that Ghanaians, regardless of locations, will have uninterrupted access to medical care across the country.
Let me first clarify that the Ghana Health Service already runs 24-hour services. So people might be wondering, then why this? Because we are already doing it. The reason is very simple. It's to align with the 24-hour economic model. The second reason is to make sure that we take this advantage to improve on our services. At certain levels, at the CHIPS, polyclinics, and other facilities, they do not run 24 hours. And in the middle of the night, you find people wanting care. And one of the things I always do say is that if any Ghanaian or anyone living in Ghana goes to the hospital, no matter the hour, and has to call the Minister of Health, or has to call the Director General, or has to know somebody before he gets attended to, then we have failed. The dream is that every Ghanaian at every hour, at any given time, should go to the hospital and have the necessary care.
He also clarified that the move is not intended to create a parallel system, but rather to strengthen the existing healthcare structure and extend its responsiveness across all hours. However, he raised key concerns about security provision for health practitioners as they carry out their duties under the 24-hour economy policy.
The goal is to ensure that the health sector's alignment with the 24-hour economy is not just technically sound, but strategically sequenced, contextually relevant, and fully institutionalized. Our task is not to create a parallel system, but to strengthen what we already have and to stretch its responsiveness across time, geography, and population groups. This will require a balance of innovation and realism. One, how do we expand 9 times services at health centers and CHIPS in resource-constrained settings? 2, how do we maintain staff motivation and safety while implementing shift systems? And 3, what type of digital support, partnership, and funding mechanism are needed to sustain these changes? How do we increase productivity and efficiency in the health sector towards the 24-hour economy?
Accusing the government of failing to provide proper oversight of logging and forest operations. According to the association, weak regulation and poor monitoring have opened the door to exploitation, mismanagement, and massive revenue losses in the sector. Speaking at a press briefing earlier today, the president of the association, Bright in KNC, expressed frustration over what members described as the Forestry Commission's lack of direction and coordination. He insisted that with immediate effect, there ought to be regulation in the timber sector, as that sector holds enormous potential to contribute meaningfully to Ghana's economy.
1, loss of foreign revenue. There is a significant loss of revenue in foreign currency. Timber exports are going, yet foreign exchange earnings are not returning to Ghana, similar to the situation with the gold and other minerals in the past. Previously, export levy revenues were also being lost until the intervention of our group leader, who collaborated with the late Nana Bendonko, then executive director. The measures we propose are now being implemented and have significantly improved revenue collection. A review of the Commission's export levies from 2000 to 2008 and from 2008 to date will show the impact of our contribution. 2. Fumigation of timber exports. Since independence, the Ministry of Agri Plant Quarantine Department has been legally mandated to oversee timber fumigation. However, in 2017, a private foreign-owned company was contracted for this service. This has resulted in exorbitant charges, USD 200 per container for lumber and $150 USD for logs, making Ghana the most expensive globally as far as fumigation is concerned. For comparison, Latin America charges $88, while neighboring countries, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, etc., charge less than $10 per 20-footer container. This makes Ghana uncompetitive, leading to investor flight.
The group is also urging government to fast-track policy reforms to ensure transparency in licensing and open up the space for local participation. They're also calling for subsidies on essential tools and equipment, which they say are increasingly out of reach for small-scale timber operators.
NPP have been in power for close to 6 months now. Okay, we have waited, listened, and watched. We are not seeing any positive transformation in the timber sector as we wanted. And the most highest person who can order for that transformation is the president. There are some things that are above the chief executive or the board. We are prepared to mobilize our unemployed workers and their families and move all our timber equipment, sawmill machines, dozers, trucks, etc., to picket at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources until our voices are heard. After helping secure an international market for rosewood by sending samples with a foreign buyer, I was denied permit after exporting the initial 200 cubic meters. Both NDC and NPP governments have ignored proper procedures, allowing political interference in the issuance of permit. Despite an initial ban, rosewood continues to be harvested daily, often by untrained community members for farming or charcoal. Forest Commission didn't know anything about rosewood. We took samples and we got the market and it picked up. It was a hell of time because they say it's a lesser known species. So at that time we pay about 2 cedis 50 pesos, 2 cedis 30 pesos. But when it picked up, it became a political game between NDC and NPP. We, the real industry players who are working with Forestry Commission and are trained to know how to harvest sustainably by the way the foresters have been trained, sustainable forest management principles, are not given the permits to go and operate.
Away from that, President of the Concerned Small-Scale Miners Association, Michael Kojo-Pepra, has described as misleading reports of his intention in pleading for clemency for miners invading the dense forest in the Ahafwano North District of the Ashanti region. According to him, he had only inquired about the police operations leading to his arrest. Mr. Pepra has since been granted bail as police commence investigations. Nyaho Nyaho has more in the following report.
In a viral video, Mr. Pepra is seen in handcuffs, with reports indicating he intervened in activities of police anti-galamsey task force, but he claims the reports are untrue. He says the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, in an earlier meeting with the miners, had authorized them to inquire of persons who undertake operations in the field.
While attending to scheduled meeting with gold buyers in Tepa Enclave. During this engagement, I received information that a group, including police officers, was allegedly engaged in burning of motorcycles belonging to local residents. Acting as a responsible leader, I approached the scene to inquire about the operations and to verify the affiliation of the task force involved. But contrary to the police claims, I did not obstruct any official duty or intervene on anybody's behalf. At the time I arrived, no individual had been arrested, making any claims of interference factual and baseless.
In the viral video, the police officer had claimed that some people in the community pointed to the president of the concerned Small-Scale Miners Association as the person behind the act. He vehemently refuted the claims, indicating he had only been to the area for the 2024 NDC campaign in mining communities.
So when I went there, I was interacting with the police person when he said, they've heard we've been there before. And I said, yes, we came there and it's on the public notice. It came into the news. So if we had gone there to campaign and I assured them that when we come, we will make sure we streamline their activity, that does not mean we are encouraging illegal mining. As a matter of fact, we went there to explain the manifesto of the NDC to the miners, which was led by Dr. Tonyobe. So if we had gone there to campaign, and for that matter, maybe they have seen us or they have seen our face or our presence there already, some of them are even they are part of our association.
Mr. Pepra has subsequently been released by the police on bail. For Joy News, Nyaho Nyaho, Kumasi.
Away from Kumasi, Emilia Butchie searched endlessly for a single room close to where she works, hoping to find one that would take a year's rent up front. But every single landlord she approached demanded 2 years in advance. With nowhere she could afford, she built a wooden kiosk just to have a roof over her head. In this episode of Habitat series, Joy News' Jacqueline Azumayebwa exposes the harsh reality trapping thousands in Ghana's broken rental system.
To increase the rent for no reason.
Emilia Butchie has been searching for a single room for the past 3 months, but every time it ended the same way. Pay 2 years rent up front or keep searching. She earns just 700 Ghana cedis a month, money she used to make working as a supermarket attendant. At that rate, saving even 1 year's rent felt impossible.
From 1,000 to 1,005 was 1 year. And then
Emilia searched and pleaded with several landlords to accept just a 1 year advance. But even that wasn't enough. She was still priced out. She was hoping to get a modest space for 450 Ghana cedis a month. But landlords she contacted were asking for between 800 Ghana cedis and 1,000 Ghana cedis a month, and for 2 years upfront. It felt like finding a pin in a haystack.
Almost 2 to 3 months, because the rent was so high, and then most of the landlords were demanding for 2 years. But my job, I can't pay for 2 years. For 1 year, cry is something.
So she stopped searching and started building a kiosk from scratch on a land she rented because it was her only option.
I decided to do it on my own. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 8,000 and above.
Even now, she pays monthly just to stay on the land her kiosk sits on at Medina.
I decided to rent a kiosk. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 800 and above, 8,000 and above, sorry.
Oh, okay, trying to put the whole structure together.
Yes, 8,000 and above. Where I was staying in a kiosk like this one, but I was renting it.
Okay.
So I decided to look for a normal building to stay in, but I searched and I couldn't get. So that's why I made up my mind. I'll still use the kiosk.
So would you say that rent in Ghana is very expensive?
Very expensive, very, very expensive.
The rent law makes it illegal for landlords to demand more than 6 months' rent in advance. Landlords who do so can be fined up to 500 penalty units, jailed for up to 2 years, or both. Yet in practice, many tenants are asked for 2 years, some even more. The law exists, but for most people, its protection is only on paper. Emilia used to teach. She left her job because the cost of transport from her new place swallowed her pay. Now she's hoping to return to school. But for now, the kiosk is all she can afford.
And then I have plans. So I have to rent the kiosk. Use the kiosk for now. And then after some time, I'll try and then move in another place.
Every day, more Ghanaians are being priced out of a place to lay their heads, not because they do not work hard, but because landlords are breaking the law and getting away with it. Until the law is enforced and rent demands reflect real wages, decent shelter will remain out of reach for Emilia and for thousands like her. Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah for Joy News, Accra.
My colleague filed that report, Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah. It's quite sad to see what some women have to go through just to get a place to stay. But Joy News, we're providing solutions to that, and that is why the Habitat First series is on the way, and always making sure that we bring you updates to that. Well, that's how we wrap up the bulletin. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. My name is Faustina Saf. I'm leaving you with Let's Talk Entertainment.